I'd like to talk a little bit about fasting today. What exactly is fasting? The Bible is filled with all kinds of examples of people who fasted. Moses fasted, King David fasted, Esther fasted, Elijah fasted, Daniel fasted, Anna, the prophetess in the New Testament, she fasted. Paul the apostle, as he was becoming Paul in that transition time, he fasted, and he did as a believer as well. Jesus himself fasted. You might even read books once in a while that talk about fasting as a form of dieting. What is fasting? Well, in Scripture, when we're talking about the context of fasting, there's a spiritual element. It has nothing to do with going on a diet or a health type initiative that you might be doing to try to do some cleanse or something or whatever. It's purely a spiritual thing. Fasting, if you want a simple definition, is abstaining from food for a spiritual purpose. Abstaining from food for a spiritual purpose. Now, somewhere along the way, the church kind of dropped the whole conversation about fasting. It used to be a pretty normal thing, but we don't talk about it much. We don't do it very often. I read somewhere that between the years of 1861 and 1954, so 93 years, almost 100 years, not a single book was published on the topic of fasting. Like, we just don't talk about it very much in the Christian community. We've just kind of push it aside. I think most of us have probably heard of it. It's not foreign. It's not like, what is this word, fasting? I've never heard such a thing. You've heard the word before, but if you were to poll the average church member, the average Christian, in America anyway, I think you'd find a great number of us have never fasted before. Or maybe you did it once or twice, or maybe it's been months or even years since you have fasted last. Maybe you were part of a church fast, but to actually initiate a fast on your own, just between you and God, many Christians just simply don't do it. I would say a very small amount of people who are believers, committed believers, wonderful, faithful believers in Jesus, actually fast on a regular basis, as opposed to the days of Jesus, where the Jews commonly fasted 2 days per week. Think about that. 2 days per week were set aside for fasting. It was normal. It was assumed. It was just something everyone did. Jesus assumed people were fasting and would continue to fast as part of his kingdom as he was establishing this new kingdom. Nowhere did he say, hey, let's slow down on the fasting thing. You guys are getting kind of carried away on it. It doesn't happen. He assumes it. In Matthew chapter 6, he says, when you fast, starting at verse 16, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites. They disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. He says, truly I say to you, they have received their reward. Whatever they were hoping to gain from fasting, they received by other people looking at them and saying, oh, look, they're fasting. Whoa, they're really spiritual. So he's saying, just don't make a big deal out of it when you do it. Don't wear a t-shirt saying, hey, look at me, I'm fasting. Don't walk into a room and say, I'm fasting, just so you know. Just kind of keep it between you and God. Sometimes we'll communicate just for the purpose of, like if we're doing a length of days in a row fasting, say, hey, I got Monday, you got Tuesday, we'll communicate that way. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about don't promote yourself as a super spiritual guy or gal and telling everybody that you're fasting. He says, but verse 17, when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, so that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So take a shower, be clean, look normal. Don't walk around like you can barely take a next step because you're starving to death or something. Just act normal is what he's saying. So the issue wasn't with the early first century Jews whether they were fasting or not. The issue was when they fasted, they did it for the wrong reasons. They did it for self-glorification. And that was wrong. Now, one of the first questions we need to tackle when we talk about fasting is this a command in Scripture? All right? I mean, is there a thou shalt fast in Scripture? Some would say yes, and here's why. Matthew 5, chapter 5, Jesus says, when you fast. Chapter 6 of Matthew, which we just read, Jesus says, when you fast. In Matthew 9, Jesus is talking to the disciples. Verse 14, disciples of John came to him saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast? Jesus said to them, can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The day will come when the bridegroom is taken away, and then they will fast. So there's going to be a time when after the resurrection, after the ascension, that during the church age, what we're in right now, that will be the time of fasting. So some people will look at those verses and say, yes, it is a command of God, you must fast. The argument against that, the other argument, obviously, if people say yes, or if people say, nah, it's not really a commandment. The other argument would be that neither of the verses or the three verses we just read are framed as a command, but rather as an assumption. It's an observation. Jesus says, hey, I know you're fasting, so here's how I want you to act when you're fast. It's instruction to have the right motives when you fast. So this is one of those areas where, as a follower of Jesus, you need to ask him, what is his desire in your life? Do you wish me to fast? How can I worship you? How can I grow my relationship with you in a stronger way? Is fasting part of that? I tend to lean toward the side that it is not a command of God, but it is an expectation for us as part of our normal relationship as a Christian. So I think God expects us to, but he's not like marking points against us, like, well, you didn't fast, you're not making it in. That's not really how fasting works. Over the years at Pathway, we have had a number of fasts. We launched with a 40-day fast. We began the process of launching 6 months earlier with a 40-day fast. We've had multiple 40-day fasts or multiple day fasts. We've had prayer rooms. Prayer has been a very important part of our church. One of the reasons we do these all-church fasts is to create an opportunity to talk about fasting as a church family. I mean, part of it is, hey, let's revitalize our prayer life. We ask people to fast in choosing leaders and elders. We ask people to fast for specific things when we move into a building. I know we looked at property, that type of thing. But sometimes we do it because, hey, if we're not fasting, we're not talking about it. So let's have a fast, so we have to talk about it. That's why I'm making this video. So it's just going to be out there. I encourage you to try fasting on your own. If you've never done it before, I guarantee you we'll have a all-church fast coming up one of these days. Jump on board that if you've never done it before, but you don't have to wait for that. The goal is for you to engage in fasting on your own. When we have these multiple day fasts, it's to encourage you, to challenge you, to show you it's not as hard or as difficult as you think it might be, and for you then to take the next step and to struggle through on your own how often for you to fast. The next video we'll do will be another short video, and we'll talk about why fast. Why do people even do it? So we'll have 4 or 5 videos, I think, in this topic of fasting to break it down into little areas. Always, if you have any concerns health-wise, talk to your doctor about it. Get to seek some wisdom. You don't jump into things, especially if you have some health issues. But generally, most Christians have the ability to do some fasting, and it will revolutionize your spiritual walk.